You think about, bad managers you've had or bad bosses, they're all over the board.
You're the only person I know that's building a personal brand that's the face of things that isn't a Rubenstein, Schwartzman type perspective. Welcome back to the Raw Selection Private Equity Podcast. Joining us today is Nick McLean, founder of Four Pillars Investors, a private equity firm based in the US. And Nick also runs a YouTube channel, Nick McLean Private Equity, which we'll dive into how he's using that to brand build and drive origination and get his firm and his profile out into the market. But without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome Nick to the podcast. Nick, if you could give us a 60 to 90 second breakdown of you, please.
My name is Nick McLean. I'm a co-founder of Four Pillars Investors. Four Pillars Investors is a private equity firm that targets lower middle market companies with an untapped potential for growth.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Short and sweet. What one mistake do you see private equity firms or portfolio companies making, and what actions would you suggest to correct them?
Well, not to say that too many people have heard me talk about private equity, but if you have, then a common theme I will share is that not all private equity firms are created equally. And there are definitely firms out there that are very spreadsheet driven. Whenever they're looking at a company, whenever they're looking at a problem, if the number on the spreadsheet isn't the number that they're looking for, they're not going to proceed, or they're not going to want to do the deal or whatever. That's fine. I see the benefit in financial analysis to a certain degree, but our culture, our approach is really much different. My partner and I are entrepreneurs at heart. And though we never had an idea for a killer mousetrap or a better mousetrap or a killer app, we find we take pride in the ability to see problems or see solutions to potential problems that actually might make the company more attractive. So this isn't it's not a mindset where it's let's try to find a reason to say no to this deal or to this project. Our mindset is let's try to find a reason to say yes to this project, eliminate or mitigate some of the risk, and try to capitalize on all the potential that's there. So long-winded way of saying that what we see some private equity firms doing wrong, at least in our opinion, is not getting to know, not talking to the people, not understanding what it is actually like on the front lines as it relates to that specific problem or that specific opportunity, and instead trying to solve problems from an ivory tower, so to speak.
So that's quite common out here, the connection between portfolio or connection between operators and investors. It sounds like you've come from that world previously, Nick, had been in the kind of operator world, then moving to investor. Firstly, why did you make that shift? And then secondly, what would be your advice to private equity deal teams to better engage with their operating teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's a quite a long story that will bore your audience to sleep, and I don't think you intend your podcast to be a sleeping aid. So I'll try to keep it brief. But I always wanted to run my own business. I wanted, if I wasn't going to run my own business, I at least wanted the seat at a table, so I was part of the decision making for a company. My partner and I joined forces in about 2015. The goal was to buy two businesses, one for me to run and one for him to run. We bought the first business in 2016. I was running that business. About 6 to 12 months in, some acquisition opportunities came along, got really involved in those, ultimately didn't go forward for a variety of reasons. But through that process, I realized that no, I didn't want to just run my own business or run a business. I wanted to run a private equity firm. And so I made that shift from running one of our portfolio companies to really changing the focus of Four Pillars from being a private equity firm that had two holdings to one that had the desires to be much larger. With that being, at present, our portfolio is about 6 companies with 7 completed transactions throughout our history.
Congratulations on that. Sorry to interrupt. Just a quick mention of our long-standing partnership with Grata. As you will probably know, the private equity scene is constantly evolving, and deal flow is moving now to proprietary and data-driven processes. Grata provides you with the data and information of over 7 million private companies. So if you're looking to improve your proprietary deal flow and improve the data access, then reach out to Grata today. Now back to the podcast. So what advice would you give to private equity professionals to better engage either with founders of portfolio companies to acquire them or with their existing management teams within their portfolio?
Well, this is going to sound, I think, incredibly trite, but I think the first step is just make it a goal to have that better relationship. I think a lot of private equity firms struggle with developing it because they don't really make it an effort, or they don't really make it a part of who they are, of what their relationship is going to be with that private equity firm. If you're curious, 4 Pillars Investors, it's 4 principles that my partner and I stand for that are really important to us. And one of those is relationships as a cornerstone for success. Whenever we're working with a portfolio company or let's take a step back, whenever we're working on a new acquisition, establishing that relationship is very important. It's not just because we think it's going to help us win the deal or purely selfish reasons. It's because if we do close this deal, we're going to be working with this person, and we want the relationship to be in place day one, so we can just hit the ground running. And we're not the type that where we go on a dating or courting process, and then after the deal closes is totally different. No, I mean what it's like working with us prior to close is going to be very different. And if you make that effort to establish relationships, to get to know the folks and work with them, really work with them prior to the close, it's much easier. All you got to do is continue that and continue to make it a focus, and it'll happen.
So you mentioned about I think it's interesting that you went down the route of actually thinking about the name of your business. I just literally took the first 3 letters of my name, put selection after it, and went for it. And then I've had everything from, are you a dog food company, to apparently one person thought we were a porn company, which I thought said more about them than it did potentially about us. But so 4 pillars for you. Obviously put a lot more thought into the name of your firm than certainly I did. What are the remaining 4 pillars? One of you mentioned obviously the communication side. What are your other 3?
Well, happy to go there, but I would like to share, how we came up with the name, because it's not, I don't want to take all the credit for, having a great idea. Originally I thought we might be called, what was it? Midwest Manufacturing Acquisitions Company, because we're based in the Midwest. We were planning to make some acquisitions of manufacturing companies, and boom, I shared that with a few folks, and I was met with blank stares. And I'm sure you can, I'm sure you agree with me. Whenever you say something like that and you're met with blank stares, that's really all the feedback that you need. And so we went back to the drawing board, and that's when we realized, hey, we're both very principle centered. What are the 3, 4, 5 principles that we want to stand for? And I think we developed a list of 13 or 14. We removed some, combined others, and ultimately settled on 4 that are really important to us. Relationships as a cornerstone for success, servant leadership, challenge the status quo, and persistence.
Excellent. Definitely a lot more thought than raw selection. So congratulations for that one. But yeah, I agree with the Midwest Acquisition Corporation, or whatever it was you said there. I think 4 pillars is a little bit more of a story behind it. So
well,
you mentioned the servant leadership, which is something that I've studied. Quite a lot of private equity firms that we work with as an organization here see that as a key trait. One of which is a firm called Blackford Capital in Michigan, and servant leadership is something that there is absolute requirement for their portfolio executives. You state that one of your primary roles of a leader manager is to help those around you be more successful. Found that in your YouTube channel, and to develop people as individuals. So what are you taking in order to live that mantra, operate as servant leadership, and commit to that, one of your pillars?
Well, at the private equity firm level, really what that means is, trying to create a career for the people that work for us. This isn't just I have all these tasks that need to be completed, and I want my colleagues and associates to complete those tasks. And if they complete those tasks, then I'm happy. Not that at all. I'm working with the folks that work for us, understanding what experiences they want to get, where they want to be in 5 to 10 years, and trying to create a career path that not only achieves my objectives, but also achieves the objectives of the other person. You think about, bad managers you've had or bad bosses, they're all over the board, but certainly you've heard of the examples where the boss is, always out for the glory and really only has people working for him or her because, he's too lazy to do it himself, or he's not willing to do it himself. Servant leadership is the exact opposite. It's, if I'm not willing to do it, then I'm not going to ask somebody else to do it. And you know what? If somebody that's working for me just literally hates doing a certain task, then I'm more likely to try and take that on myself so that I create a positive work environment for my colleagues and associates, as opposed to simply making them do that because they're the low man on the totem pole.
Yeah, interesting. And so what and why did, I mean, I understand the concept of servant leadership, obviously, but why did you decide to put that as one of your pillars? Why do you think all that level is so important, and what benefits? I feel like I'm asking a question I can answer myself, but I want to know from your perspective, what benefits have you seen by creating that kind of environment in your firm, and obviously from a portfolio perspective as well, no doubt.
Well, first off, I will say that I wouldn't, the pillars in our name are not, aspirational. They're not along the lines of, okay, if we pick these 4 pillars, then we're going to grow as a company because everybody's going to know about that and they're going to think that we're, great people or really cool or progressive or whatever. It's what we stand for. Right or wrong, we stand for these things. So, even if servant leadership wasn't going to help grow the portfolio or whatever, it's still important to my partner and I, and it's still going to be one of those pillars. However, when it comes to portfolio company health, why, if you ask me, make a case for why servant leadership is important, what I would tell you is we think the servant leadership mindset is fundamental to not only developing the team below you, whatever your level is in the organization, but creating a process by which those folks are developing experiences so that they can grow to that next level. We've all worked in companies where you feel like, Joe or whoever is good at this job, but man, that's his ceiling. Is that Joe's fault, or is that the organization and his boss's fault because they haven't made the effort to develop him, to give him these experiences that will challenge him, take him outside of his comfort zone? Obviously every situation is different. Everybody has a ceiling at some point. So it's very possible that Joe really did hit his ceiling and there was no benefit or no way to heighten that. But I don't think that's the case for the vast majority of folks. I think the vast majority of folks with the right experiences, with the right encouragement and training, they'll hit their ceiling, but we think we can meaningfully increase the height of that ceiling.
I think that's really interesting. Yeah, I think some of the questions we get asked about is what do good people want? What do they desire? And a lot of it is opportunity, development, investment, and being pushed and pressed and giving positive pressure in order to be better. Flexibility seems to be top of everyone's line. Work from home seems to be top of everyone's mind. And what I say is, flexibility just comes with, good businesses and good organizations. You need to go to the dentist, then, oh yeah, well, no, you need to book 7 weeks off in advance or whatever. Or this just happened, I need to sort it out. My house is on fire. No, we need you in the office. I'm afraid the house can wait. But tongue in cheek a little bit there, but the fundamentals around people wanting progression, development, improvement, and that's what really good people want, and that's what they're looking for. So I think certainly operating that as a servant leadership, no doubt, brings you a lot of benefit both in your firm and your portfolio. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Nick, I'm interested. We run our own YouTube channel here. You are the only private equity firm I can think of. There may be others. I apologize if you're listening, and I know you and I don't know. I'm not referencing your private equity YouTube channel, but you're the only person I know that's building a personal brand that's the face of things, that isn't a Rubenstein, Schwartzman type perspective of at the top of one of the big large cap firms. So what inspired you to set up your own YouTube channel? which is, I think, Nick McLean, private equity. Although you do describe yourself as the most boring person in private equity, which I'd be interested to see why you believe that as well. But what inspired you initially to setting that up and sharing your voice, your experience, and a bit about your deals and what you've done, etc., when the world of private equity is so closed off and so not open?
Yeah, there are really a lot of different reasons. I guess where I'll start is that, fortunately or unfortunately, my partner and I are not blue bloods. We didn't go to Harvard. We didn't work at all the private equity firms that are household names to those in finance. We're entrepreneurs, and I would like to think that entrepreneurs have a different way of looking at the world, and because of that, I actually spend time thinking about what we can do differently. What activities, either what are some activities that we can do differently from our peers, or actually what are different activities we can perform that our peers are not doing. And this is a great example of an activity that we are doing that our peers are not. What benefit is it going to bring to us? I mean, that's certainly a question that is to be answered, and it will change over time. But at the heart of it, though, we want to be helpful. And just because there is a business owner that might find some value in our videos and our content, if they don't contact us, sure, I would like them to contact us. But even if they don't, I want our content to be consumed and to be worthwhile, and that's another big part of it. So it's really a few different reasons why we decided to do that, and why we continue to. But at the heart of it, it's this desire to recognize that we're different people. Everyone's different. We're different, and we're going to take a different approach when we think about marketing, when we think about brand building and whatnot. I guess one other area that I want to hit is whenever we think about our portfolio companies and how we want to grow. I mean, I think every private equity firm wants to grow their portfolio company, so nothing new there. We are definitely not a cost cutting type shop here. We are, operational efficiency. Yes, it's important, but the real drivers are, in our view, revenue growth. If we can double revenue, then yeah, let's try to focus on operational efficiencies as well. But doubling revenue, as long as it's profitable work, is going to move the needle more than a few lean or Kaizen events to reduce inventory or whatever if you're in a manufacturing setting. So we take that revenue growth focus, and if we're going to tell our portfolio companies that we want them to be smart and savvy in sales and marketing and try different approaches when it comes to that, well, we're kind of hypocritical if we don't do it ourselves. So, a lot of these reasons are all interrelated and are reinforcing. And it's for that reason. I guess that's the reason. That's not the reason why we started this, but that might be the reason why we continue to do it.
Yeah, and it's good to see. I mean, it's good to have that. I always think of everything if you think long term. If you think short term with any of this content creation strategy, brand awareness strategy, marketing, advertising, whatever title you want to put on it, you will struggle to see initial return on investment. But if we think long term with regards to where do we want to be, not just in the next 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 15, and looking at that longer term play, then that's where it begins to bring the significant value. And when you're building that firm and seeing that journey, that's what people will engage with. And the differentiating factor of you having that channel is that the first thing I said was nobody else is doing this that I'm aware of. Everyone else is being quiet. And if you're doing the opposite of that, it's going to bring attention and it's going to bring awareness. And that will put you in the bucket of consideration. It wouldn't guarantee the business, but it will put you in the bucket of consideration. And your 4 pillars and how you operate, your values, and everything else that will put you in the yes bucket. But it's getting that awareness. And if people don't know who you are, how on earth do you expect them to ever consider you as an acquirer of their company or as a supplier or whatever you want? It's just not going to happen.
Exactly. I mean, that's a big part of it. And also it's it's the intentionality around this. We always talk to people that, talk about how busy they are and how they can't afford to do anything else. And I get it. It's just, you've got to commit, you've got to find the time. And if you can't do both of those, then, this type of endeavors is not for you.
Absolutely, and this is why anybody who's watching on the YouTube channel can see the rather ugly, I would say, curtain that you have, which I know is your green screen, or I'm hoping it's your green screen, whereas I'm just attacking your internal design technique. Although those lights have got to give something away.
No. Yes. I do apologize for the background, but yes, behind me is where the quote unquote magic happens for the YouTube channel. Not the greatest of backgrounds for this type of production, but hopefully you'll forgive me.
No, absolutely. Not only am I the host of the Private Equity Podcast, I'm also the founder and managing partner of Raw Selection. Raw Selection's an executive search firm working exclusively within the private equity industry, supporting the portfolio companies and the private equity firms with securing exceptional talent with our motto of de-risking executive search. So, but look, anybody who's listening who's thinking, well, that isn't for me, that isn't right, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not telling everybody they need to set up a YouTube channel, but what I am saying is that we can learn from everybody who's doing something different. So if you have the opportunity, please do go check out the channel and go and have a look at what Nick's doing here to share the message, because it might be that it inspires you to do something similar, something different, etc. from there. But it's good to support people in our networks within the industry. There's enough business out there, certainly for us all. So,
and if I could just interject that if you do want to find me on YouTube, I can be found at Nick for FOUR Pillars. So at Nick for Pillars, all spelled out.
Perfect. Thank you for that. What are your influences, Nick? What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to that you recommend that other people in this industry should check out?
Well, I've always considered myself to be a student of leadership. And whenever I was, just getting started down the leadership path, would read a large variety of books. Definitely Stephen Covey's 7 Habits was highly influential. And, also would read about different, social psychology, which I think is fascinating and also applies to leadership. However, through all that reading, my own personal opinion is where I ended up is that at the end of the day, if you're a leader, it's really about motivating and influencing and persuading, because they call it a leader. They don't call it a doer. They don't call it an individual contributor for a reason. So throughout all the books I've read, there are a handful that have stuck with me that I would recommend to pretty much anyone, not just in business, just anyone that wants to think about influence or persuasion. And the book that I would always point to is one by Cialdini, which is called Influence, the Science and Art of Persuasion. Or sometimes I mess up that title, but the main title is Influence, and the author is David Cialdini. He talks about various methods to influence, and it's one of those books where it's really a aha moment, because oftentimes he'll give examples and you'll think, oh my gosh, I acted that exact way in that exact scenario. Now I know why I did that. And those types of aha moments. So couldn't recommend that more. Very, very influential in my own leadership philosophies and whatnot.
Perfect. Appreciate the recommendation. I'm just trying to think. I've got surrounded by books in my office, and that don't think I have that one, so that will be on the Amazon basket post this discussion. If anybody wishes to reach out to you, Nick, you obviously mentioned your YouTube channel, but how best do they get in touch?
Well, my email is always open, so I'd be happy for folks to email me directly. That's nmclean, so nmclean at four pillarsinvestors.com. And like you said, if you want to get to know me, not willing to send the email, the YouTube channel is best. I call myself the most boring guy in private equity, because don't even ask me about my schedule. I'm in bed before my kids some night, or at least asleep before my kids some night, which certainly contributes to that moniker. But again, what we're trying to do there is just allow folks a forum to get to know me and see what we stand for, because my number one goal in any relationship with a potential seller or whatnot is to make sure that we both actually want to work together. And developing whether or not you actually want to work together, that doesn't happen over a Zoom call. That doesn't happen over 5 or 10 Zoom calls. That really just takes some time. And I'm not, definitely those YouTube videos are not going to replace the in-person face-to-face interaction, but you'll at least have a better feel for who I am as a person if you take a look at some of those.
Really agree with that. And as a follower of your channel, I knew who you were before we started and kicked things off. So it does make a certain difference. Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on the Private Equity podcast and give us an insight into 4 pillars, why you named the 4 pillars, and a little bit into what you're doing differently in a crowded industry to separate yourself. So thank you very much for sharing everything you have.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
And for all of our listeners for the Private Equity podcast, thank you very much for tuning in yet again. If you have not already, please do subscribe to the podcast. You'll be notified, which comes out every single week. But till the next time, keep smashing it. And thank you very much for listening.